You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or on our YouTube channel, all over social media, or our morning newsletter, KCSN Daily, dedicated to your Kansas City Chiefs. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What up, Chiefs Kingdom? Happy Thursday. It is the bye week, and this is Outside the Trenches. We appreciate you spending part of your day with us. I'm BJ Kissel, joined as always by my guys, Nick Leckey, former K-State All-American and Super Bowl champion with the New Orleans Saints, and Tucker Franklin, our podcast producer here at KC Sports Network and co-host of Outside the Trenches, and does a little bit of everything for us here at KCSN. And this show is sponsored by our good friends up at Holiday Distillery and their product, Five Farms Irish Cream. It's getting to that time of the year. The temperature's dropping a little bit, whether it's your hot chocolate, your coffee, throw a little Five Farms Irish Cream and you will not be disappointed. I promise you. But since it's the bye week and you've listened to this show before, I'm assuming, then you know we each bring a different segment. We talk about it. We don't know what the others have brought. But before we get into that, Nick, how has your last week been?
It's been good, man. It's been really good. It was despite the K-State loss to TCU, hard-fought loss. Backup quarterback surprisingly throwing dimes.
Backup everybody.
Everybody. It's just nuts. It was wild. Like a game that was a late '90s heavyweight bout. Tyson Lewis Holyfield. It fizzled at the end. It just I hate how injuries determined it. Now I can feel like a KU fan. Sorry, Tucker. I can't compare it to Mizzou this year. So,
listen,
Tucker,
it's hard to compare to Mizzou. I'll be honest. I've had many heartbreaks this year.
It's true heartbreaks.
I'll set this up. Tucker's best moment of Mizzou football over the last few weeks has been Luther Burden tweeting that he loves loves it in Columbia.
I thought he did the whole child antic thing and unfollowed and.
Nick, he did. He wiped his Instagram clean, made his profile picture black, and was said patiently waiting on his Instagram story. And then everyone freaked out. They're like, oh my gosh, this dude's played 2 games for us and he's going to leave. He hates it here. But now he's made a concerted effort to make sure that people know that he loves it in Columbia, which is a good thing. I would be shocked if he transfers at this point. I really don't think he will.
Is there an NIL tracker to have for private jets? Is there an NIL tracker to see amount got paid after that little tantrum to stay?
Making that money off chips. He's got a chip NIL deal.
It spikes your social media following more than a little uncertainty about the future. It's next level thinking there from the young stud wide receiver. It worked. All right, let's get into a little Chiefs talk. Obviously, with the bye week, we spent the last few days talking about the Chiefs win last week and dominating win, I should say, over the 49ers. A get-right game for the Chiefs offense coming off that game against the Buffalo Bills where they weren't bad, but it was great to see everything kind of click going into the bye week, obviously with Halloween and everything going on. But first segment, I'll kick this off with the most surprising performances so far from the Chiefs. It could be a position group. It could be a player. It could be a side of the ball, whatever you've got. You both look very confused. And that's what I love about this show, because we don't know what the others are bringing, although the title of this show should have given it away a little bit. But Nick, we'll start with you. What's been the most surprising performance for you so far from the Chiefs as they sit here at 5-2 going into the bye week?
I think the sort of mid-season, I think the past 2 games, I've really seen Juju Smith-Schuster sort of come alive. You can see how, when you talk about chemistry, dynamic, learning the system, and I'd say the biggest surprise was Juju turning into this sort of run after catch monster, and it's and I see him and Patrick clicking because he gets more targets. They've sort of figured out who he is, what he brings to the table, what he can offer. And then they're starting to you start to see as we get into the season, with this Andy Reid offense, they're starting to unfurl it like an onion, like an awesome blossom from Chili's, right? They're just unfurling the layers, right? And just so much goodness. And there's some sauce in the middle. And then that's what he's providing. When you can get that many yards after catch, that brings a huge threat to this offense that's sort of been missing in this post Tyreek world. Is who's gonna battle for supremacy as wide receiver number one, and he's making a strong argument for that, and you see it coming. I mean, let's be honest, Travis Kelce's always wide receiver number one, but like true wide receiver number one, like actual like wide receiver. But it's cool to see.
Yeah.
I think my first reaction on this might have been a negative reaction because I'm surprised kind of how poor the offensive line has played at moments. I think that could be a surprising one, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to keep it positive on this bye week. Don't act like I didn't say that, because what I want to talk about is how good McCole Hardman has been this year. I think McCole Hardman, especially in that game just before the bye, he's been playing through the heel injury. He's been getting the touches, doing good stuff with the touches that he has been. Showed a very mature play. If you want to go watch the breakdown of the play, it's on the breakdown here on this same KC Sports Network channel on YouTube. They do a really good job breaking down how that play works. In 13 personnel with 3 tight ends on the field, the only wide receiver is McCole Hardman on that jet sweep kind of end around, and he's patient. He waits for his blocks to develop, and I don't think that's something we would have seen from a McCole Hardman maybe a year ago. So I think seeing his development has been surprising. I think it's been a very good surprise to see kind of McCole Hardman's development.
Those are both very good ones. And I'm going to pull a Tucker right here. And that is, I'm not going to talk about the offense in the post Tyreek Hill world. I know people hate talking about him, but there was so much talk of the offseason on this Chiefs offense wasn't going to be explosive and they weren't going to be able to do all these things. Well, they're the number one scoring offense in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes leads the league in touchdowns and passing yards. And Tucker, we were just talking about this before we were recording. Last year during the regular season, the Chiefs had 3 games in which they put up 40 or more points. This season, through 7 games, they've already had 3 games where they've put up at least 40 points. And they've done that against 2 defenses at the time that were the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes, there are points being made that Patrick Mahomes is better this year than he's been in the past. And if we have the receipts going back to this show in the offseason saying that I'm not going to be surprised if this is the case, because Patrick Mahomes has never gotten enough credit for how well he can read a defense, the mental acuity of playing that position. We've always been so enamored with the physical, crazy throws, the left-handed throws, all that crap, that you forget that he can also sit back and read a defense and has that ability with Coach Reid to get together. And you have this guy with all the tools in the world, all the physical abilities in the world, who is also somebody akin to the way that Andy Reid can call a game. You putting 2 beautiful minds together with the physical abilities of Patrick Mahomes, and this is what you get. And people are saying he's better now than he was before. He's always been this good. They just don't feel like they have to force a ball to a player or build an offense around a player who is the most explosive player to ever play in the NFL. That is truth with Tyreek Hill. We didn't need that, Keenan Allen. The receipts are out there. Somebody's getting exposed, and it's everyone who doubted this offense thinking that it was all built around one player.
Yeah, and I think that's something for me too that I recognized early on, is that I think when you have a person who's so dynamic and so like top of their game, you have to like find ways, and especially as it got towards the end there last season, was like they had to find ways to force it to him, and teams were like, that's what they want to do. Like they're like just biding their time before they can deep ball to Tyreek. And now that you've eliminated that, you forced Reid to sort of reconfigure the system, right? Adjust a little bit too. So that's why teams are having a tough reaction where they're like, crap, we don't know what it's going to be now. Besides Travis, anybody's available. Like there's no like number 2 that's like solid. And that's what makes their offense more dynamic.
And it's not like the deep ball's gone either. We've seen a couple shots to, MVS. He caught a big one in the Niners game. And especially I think where they've improved is over the middle of of the field. Travis Kelce's always been really good over the middle, but now you have Juju, who you saw him take a ball that he caught in the middle of the field all the way for a touchdown, just the yards after the catch. You see guys like that, these bigger bodies get in there. And back shoulder passes were really big against the 49ers, like using those big bodies to kind of get in those advantageous positions to catch the ball. And I think that, it's this wide receiver core, this offense as a whole is just very exciting. We all talked offensively when it came to what we were most surprised about, but I think
I didn't get to my butt. That was just what I wasn't going to talk about, and we just made a little mini segment out of it.
No, wow. Okay.
But most surprising performance to me this far, and it's not that I don't think he's going to be a great player, but he has become a player that should be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. That's Chris Jones. Chris Jones has been absolutely dominant so far this year. You look at the Pro Football Focus grades, you take them for what they are. Everybody bops on, it's still Kent Swanson's word, bop. Everybody bops on Pro Football Focus in their grades because of the way that they grade Patrick Mahomes, and they just haven't figured out how to grade a player who's doing things that no player's ever done before. You look at Chris Jones, he's the highest rated defensive player in the NFL, above even like Aaron Donald. He is rated higher than Aaron Donald so far this season, and he has had 3 of his 7 games. He is rated over 92, according to their grade. He has been dominant. And if the Chiefs, going even before the season, if the Chiefs were going to do anything special, if they were going to win a Super Bowl, Chris Jones needed to be a dominant player up front, and that's exactly what we've seen from him. Seen it from the defense. So much talk in the offseason was the fact that they had 31 sacks as a team last year, finished dead last in the AFC. I think they were 29th in the NFL. They have 19 sacks through 7 games, on pace to be significantly better than that. A lot of that is Steve Spagnuolo being aggressive, sending extra guys, which we've talked about, needing to get more pressure with 4. I think we saw a little bit better of that. We've seen Frank Clark come on the last few games and look a lot more explosive, skinny Frank this season. But for me, the most surprising performance is the one that I wanted to see the most, which is Chris Jones has been absolutely dominant for the Chiefs defense at times in both the run game and in the pass game. His only game in which he wasn't graded great was the Colts game. And that's where they struggled the most up front. So when Chris Jones goes, this defense goes. And that's why that's my giant butt there. We're not talking about the offense and how explosive they've been, but really talking about Chris Jones. And he should be, and I talked about that with Brett yesterday on KCS An Update, that Chris Jones should be in that conversation with Micah Parsons for Defensive Player of the Year, the way that he's played so far this year.
Yeah. And even legit O-lines like the Colts O-line, battling, arguably the top left guard in the league in Quentin Nelson. I know the Bills have a solid interior. They're a top 5, top 10 O-line. The 49ers, they're top 5, top 10. I mean, so he ain't doing this against, the bottom of the barrel O-lines. Like, these are legit, like top notch O-lines in the NFL. And he's wreaking havoc in the interior, just absolute havoc. And I got to say, it's what you said, the safety blitzes. And it's also, I think Karlaftis is that spark that they wanted to see. He's that variable where Karlaftis got chip help versus Williams. Or who was the left tackle? Who's the 49ers guy? Was it Williams? No, who is it?
Trent Williams.
Yeah.
Trent Williams. Yeah, Trent Williams.
Pretty good player.
He got chip help versus Trent Williams.
Yeah.
And he even bull rushed Trent Williams a couple into the quarterback. I'm like, damn.
No fear. That's a really good point that I think that they brought up on the one-on-one podcast. And if you guys haven't listened to that, you can obviously go see this on wherever you listen to your podcast or on this YouTube page. But they brought up, they have to account for him. You might not see Karlaftis making his impact on the stat sheet. He has, I think, the most pressures of any rookie defensive end or defensive lineman. He's not turning it into sacks, which is okay. I still think pressures are production in my book. But you're seeing teams have to account for him, which is big when you can't just like leave somebody out there and be like, all right, we can go one-on-one with him. That'll be fine. When you see a rookie having to have it, Nick, as you mentioned, chip help, or having to be doubled so he doesn't get to the quarterback, that's huge. And especially on a rookie contract, that's absolutely big for this defense. You just would like to see a little bit more sacks, but listen, beggars can't be choosers at this point. I know BJ would especially like to see a little bit more sacks for him.
Listen, I put it out there, and I will continue to wear. We just need to average 1 sack. Just average. I do have money on it. Just average 1 sack a game for the final 10, and he'll break DT's record. I don't think
Just
anybody,
like you
the
said.
sacks haven't been there, but to your point, the disruption, all of that stuff has been there. I don't think anybody's disappointed in what we've seen from George Karlaftis so far this season. And if they are, I haven't heard a lot about them, but I'm trying to bring up the numbers here because I was bringing these up with Brett Coleman yesterday, again on KCSN Update. Make sure to check that out. But Tucker, to your point on the intermediate passing, that Patrick Mahomes, I was looking at the percentages of passes last year that were thrown deep, which is beyond 20 yards down the field, and that it's 2% less. This year, it's at like 9.7. Last year was like 11%. So just, we're talking a handful of passes. But the intermediate ones are the ones that it's most impressive to look at, because those intermediate passes, yards per attempt, and intermediate, that 10 to 19 yards down the field, Patrick Mahomes is grading over 90 in 2 of those quadrants, in middle left, middle center. Whereas in the years past, it wasn't a bad grade, but it was significantly lower. They are significantly better intermediate between 10 and 19 yards down the field than they've been in the past. And the yards per attempt last year was 9.1 on those throws. And obviously some of those are incomplete, and that's why it's below 10, even though you're, talking about intermediate passing yards. But this year it's like 12.8. So they're picking up bigger chunks of yards. And the point to Brett was, another reason for that could be they're facing a lot more man coverage. So they're not necessarily running hooks, sitting inside zones and finding those pockets like they've done in the past. They're running crossers, over routes, all those things where they're hitting guys in stride, and there's a lot more yards after the catch, which obviously affects, the yards per attempt there. But the addition of Juju, MVS, McCole Hardman, getting some more passes down the field, running those intermediate routes. And obviously we know Travis Kelce is a beast across the middle, but all those things about the changing the makeup of the Chiefs wide receiver room, and that Juju is a big physical player. MVS, even though he's a field stretcher, is a bigger, more physical player. A lot of those bubble screens, things on the outside, man, Juju can do it all. Like Juju can block. He's not coming off the field and like running, obviously like running plays. Like that's why Matty Lane after the game's like, don't let him get on the plane without giving him a contract extension like right now. Like keep that guy in Kansas City for a while.
Yeah. That's why you see the flourishment, or the flourishing of the intermediate routes is size, size advantage, and it just makes sense that you don't have to rely on it's like intermediate throws, and those were keep drives alive. Those give you chunks. And that's when you get in that era of like, okay, I have like one safety to beat after this corner, and they don't want to tackle Juju in stride. They're like, someone else get him. I don't want it. Like, let me hold you up for a D lineman.
I think I've told this story before, but the perception for me around Juju was in Pittsburgh, he played in the slot a lot. So I think in your mind, when you think of a slot wide receiver, you think of kind of a smaller guy, right? So when I went to training camp for the first time and actually saw Juju, I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy's not your typical slot receiver. He's huge, and he's good in every aspect of the game. He gets a lot of crap for just being on social media and doing stuff that kids do on the TikTok and the dances and stuff like that. Now, dancing on teams' logos probably isn't the best idea. I will say that. But I do think that he has toned it down a bit. They had that whole conversation about Call of Duty and how they grew their chemistry with Call of Duty. Travis Kelce on his podcast was talking about, hey, I'm not very good at Call of Duty, but I'm a good teammate. I'm a good flanker. I'll just go and do whatever I need to do. So
Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, they definitely made that reference a couple times. And that's really cool to see, just number one, the guys you're a fan of just be dudes like you are, right? And play Call of Duty. And just like, oh, that's cool to see the players that I watch play football on Sunday do the same things that I do on Monday through Friday. That's a cool thing to see. It's also a cool thing to see that chemistry translate on the field, because I think it's pretty evident that they've kind of figured out some chemistry wise. And you know what else is pretty evident is how good Trade Coffee is at figuring out what kind of coffees that you like. They've got their quiz, but not only is the quiz the best part, they will ship it to you fresh whenever you want it. If you've been getting your coffee from the grocery store and drinking the same coffee every day, it's time to try something even better with Trade Coffee. It's so easy to get fresh roast delivered to your doorstep from local roasters around the country with Trade. Trade Coffee is a coffee subscription service that makes it so simple for you to discover new coffees and make your best cup of coffee at home every day. No fancy equipment acquired. This is really cool. Trade partners with the nation's top-rated independent roasters to send you coffee that they know you'll love, fresh to your home and on your preferred schedule. And you get to support small local businesses. That's a win-win. It might even be a win-win-win because you get good coffee as well. Whether you already know what you like or you are new to specialty coffee and you need some help, Trade makes it easy and convenient for you to discover new coffees. They'll send you ground coffee or whole beans, however you want it, however you want to make it from home. For me, I like the coarse ground stuff. I like to put it in my cold brew. Nick's recommendation of drinking cold brews really helped me out. So I just put it in my cold brew. I put some cold tap water in it. Maybe I'll do some filtered from the Brita every now and again. Shake it up, let it steep for about. I like a little bit bolder of a taste, so I let it go for about 24 hours. They say about 12, but I like it. I like a little bit bolder of a taste. But so whether you're just getting started or you're a coffee aficionado looking for something new, Trade guarantees you'll love your first bag, or they'll send you a new one for free. I've had the PTs in Topeka, I believe it is. It's roasted in Kansas. It's wonderful. Give that a try. Go take that quiz, and so you can get the best coffee that you like. And you can upgrade your coffee today with Trade Coffee and let them take the guesswork out of finding your perfect cup. Right now, Trade is offering our listeners a total of $30 off your subscription plus free shipping at drinktrade.com/KCSN. That's drinktrade.com/KCSN for $30 off your subscription to the best coffees in the country. Nick, I know you love Trade Coffee, and it's been great for me.
And they have a 2-pound option too.
That's good to know.
It's the best deal in the coffee world is buying bags 2 pounds at a time, because you're getting a 12-ounce bag with your pound coffee, but when you get 2 pounds of coffee, you're getting 36. So you're getting really like three bags of coffee for the price of like 2. So yeah.
All right,
Do you
Tucker,
freeze it?
do you want to go next? Let's
Let's stop talking about.
get back to the Chiefs talk.
Okay.
Tucker, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. So it is the bye week. So I'm curious because you guys all have different perspectives on the game of football, just your experiences, life experiences. I'm curious what your favorite thing to do during the bye week is. Just because, Nick, while you played, what did you like to do during the bye week? BJ, as your job being the team reporter, what did you do during the bye week? And I'll obviously share what I do as just a fan, just a regular guy.
I know when I was playing, I think I love bye weeks when your coach didn't like drag it on till Wednesday. And I think Denny Green was the best because he was like, all right, we're coming to practice Monday. We'll have a meeting Tuesday, and then you're out and you're gone. And what I'd like to do when I was playing was get away from football. Like, I don't want to turn on a TV. I was before Twitter, but nowadays I wouldn't have turned on Twitter. I wouldn't have done anything. I just would have been in my own little hole. Aaron and I we lived in Phoenix. So we would go to one of the resorts in Phoenix. There's so many different resorts, resort hotels, and we check in for the weekend and just kind of chill. Like just sort of like just low key rest, you're not working out. You're not doing a damn thing besides eating and drinking and being a normal person, watching, your college football team on Saturday, watching my cats, and just existing, without the stress of a game week, right? It's like breathe and get away from, because, people don't realize, man, like when they get on players for playing Call of Duty after, right, they've been in football from like 8 to 4 p.m. Like, do you expect them to be in football mode all the time? That's stupid,
Your
now,
playbook.
If you're a quarterback, different story. If you're a quarterback, different story. You have to. But everyone else, no, you're good, man. Shut it down at 4 or 5 and be a normal human being. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I was reporting, we always go to Manhattan during the bye week. So I'd always just try to spend as much time with my kids as I could, just because, you start training camp and you're gone for 3 weeks. Away from your family, at least with the Chiefs. Like, you go up to St. Joe, you're away from your family. I was living in the dorms with Matt McMullen, watching, Marvel
Avengers.
movies every night. Yeah. But no, I would just try to get away from it a little bit. We'd have content that we'd kind of plan out, and some of the, checkpoints, the stats, a lot of the same things that we're talking about here. Just kind of planning that content out. But I would go spend time with family. A lot of the players would, leave town, they'd go wherever. And they'd have to be back, I think, by like the next Monday or whatever it was. But they'd get some time off. Players would travel around. We'd always, like I said, my in-laws go to Manhattan, try to catch a K-State game there in Manhattan and have some fun. But Yeah, most time it was get away from it, because once training camp starts, like once you hit like 4th of July, like it's over. Like you blink and all of a sudden it's January. Because right after the 4th of July, you don't report to camp, but you're planning everything for training camp. So it basically starts, and then you get into all that. But yeah, try to get away from it a little bit.
It's the opposite for me. I try to get into it more. No, but I think that's kind of the thing. Is like I get to watch Red Zone. Turn on the Red Zone channel. You don't have to focus. Is it overstimulating for you, Nick?
It is overstimulating for me. I like to see the buildup. I don't like to see just the action. I like to see how did they get here, right? I need to see.
That's fair.
It's like eating. It's like, you know what Red Zone to me is? It's eating the icing off the cake without eating like the sponginess, like the cake part, right? That's what it is. It's just overload for me.
That's fair.
It's just leaning into the instant gratification society. It's the fantasy football aspect. It's the fantasy football impact of everything.
I get it.
I don't even watch it for the fantasy football. I just like to know what's going on at every game all at once. Whenever I need to know anything, it's just right there at my face. So that's kind of what I'll do. Is just watch a bunch of football, which is really not out of the normal for any other week. Now that I think about it, I just watch a bunch of football every week.
I watch Red Zone when the Chiefs are on too.
It's less stress because you don't have to worry about
Yeah,
the Chiefs going to win.
true.
Like, what do we got to do?
True.
Like, you know what? Just sit back and enjoy football. I guess that's what we do at K-State. You know, just enjoy football a little bit.
I don't.
All right,
Watch
Nick.
K-State, yeah.
That's strong.
What do you got for us?
All right. So with Pacheco getting the starting nod this past game versus the Niners, how do you guys interpret that? I know what's said, whatever. How do you guys interpret that? Is this a long-term play to say, hey, we just want to get some more reps in for late the season? Is this Clyde, we don't like what you're doing? Is this, McKinnon, we don't like what you're doing? Is this like Pacheco, here's your chance? And it's like, how do you guys interpret that move?
I think the most interesting part is that, at least if you take him for what he said after the game, that Pacheco didn't even know that he was starting this game until he was told to stay on the field after the kickoff. So Nate Taylor told us that on Monday's KCSN update, which I thought was very interesting, that it wasn't a thing that apparently they knew, but somehow Ian Rappaport knew before the player did. But I don't know if it's motivation to Clyde, to leak that out or to get that, whether it was from his agent or whoever, because I don't know if you take, again, Pacheco at his word, if he didn't know, where did the information come from? Who was Ian talking to get that out there? So I don't know if it's motivation to Clyde. I think, if you want some more explosive plays and some more bursts, some more juice, Pacheco brings that. He's got that skill set more than Clyde does, although I would tell you that I think Clyde has looked more explosive this year than he was last year. He's banged up, he had an injury. But yeah, it was made a big thing leading into that game. And then I don't think the carry split was all that different at all. I don't think during the game, I wasn't thinking, man, Pacheco's getting a really big opportunity here. And Clyde's not a part of it. We saw Clyde, with his touchdown run, he looked good. So it was more of a media thing.
Yeah, I think so too. That was kind of one of my first thoughts was, maybe this is a light a fire under Clyde type of deal. But I do think that that's interesting that even Pacheco didn't know. So it makes you wonder about the old rap sheet source that he had there. How close do you have to get to what do you have to pay for that one, huh? What's the price he paid for that source? But no, I think that it's very interesting. But I personally don't think starts necessarily matter. I am of the belief of running back by committee is probably the best way to go by it. So like if you lose one, it's not the end of the world, because running back as a position, running backs get hurt all the time. So if you have a bunch of running backs that you trust, a bunch of running backs that you're getting out there, it's different than if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, right? But if you have two running backs, you got two running backs. I think that's going to be a good kind of model for the Chiefs to take moving forward. Even with Jerick McKinnon, they've got Isaiah Pacheco. Just to have that running back by committee is good. I don't necessarily think starts matter all that much. Whoever's on the field first is all that means, but I don't know.
Could it have something to do with McCaffrey and all the talk about McCaffrey, and then flipping it a little bit back to be like, well, they gave up all these assets for McCaffrey and they're really excited about him, and the Chiefs are just excited about their 7th round rookie who they feel like can step in and make an impact too.
Yeah, I can see that. I think, and I'll let you guys sort of choose your own adventure on this one. But I was been thinking about it over and over again, and like I think when you watch film and you're in the O line room and you watch film and you're like, why didn't this guy go here? And they're like, oh, we have no clue. And we're like, he should have went here. We don't know what he's doing, what he's reading. And I think over a long enough period of time that you sort of get frustrated with that. And you say, okay, well, we need a guy who's going to want to hit the hole. Like we need a guy who's going to fit this offense, going to fit this scheme, fit what we're trying to do. And Clyde sort of has this casualness to his running style that Pacheco is more like the Steven Jackson, like a mini Steven Jackson, like an aggressive runner, physical runner, and can strike fear into defenses. And short yardage, he's going to get it. And so you could look at it like that, like motivation to Clyde, or you could say, hey, we want you to get some starts and we want you to just in case someone goes down, because running backs get hurt, man. They are highly tuned athletes and their hamstrings or back, something groin, always sort of. So you want to get in reps, it's like, is this plugging them in for reps? So there's normalcy. Or you could just say this is who we want. This is kind of who we want going forward. Or, like you said, motivation to Clyde. So it's like, I can't put my finger on the motive or what happened, because you're right. Yeah. I mean, 8 carries, 6 carries, not really much big difference. But I think Pacheco's carries were more significant than Clyde's, And then I think I still think back to when the ball hit Clyde in the back of the head on a pass route. Yeah, I think that did not sit right with Big Red. I really did. It didn't sit right with me, And it's like, okay, what are you doing? Like here's your motivation now. You lost your spot. And that means something. I know we say that means something. Starts matter. That's how you judge a rookie. Say, oh, he got X amount of carries last year. He got 2 starts last year. It says something.
Yeah. All right. As we wrap this show up, let's do one final segment. We talked about the Chiefs' most surprising performances so far this year. Let's talk give each of us a chance to talk about who we hope we would talk between the bye week and the end of the regular season. We do this show again at the end of the regular season. Who do we hope the most surprising performance between week 7, week 8, and the end of the regular season? Who are we hoping that we are talking about having a surprising performance during this next stretch of 10 regular season games? Tucker, let's start with you.
I would love to say Trent McDuffie. I want to say Trent McDuffie because I want to see Trent McDuffie play in football games. And I think that the expectations put on Trent McDuffie might make him not the most surprising, right? So that could be tough, is when you talk about surprising players, you got to take their expectations into account. But a lot of people are expecting things with Trent McDuffie. I'm excited to see him back on the field. And I guess I could really transition this into just the defense not skipping a beat when he does come on the field, right? They've played in what, 6 games without Trent McDuffie, 6.5 really, because he was out in the first half, I believe. So they've played in 6.5 games. How does that mess up their chemistry, if it does at all? And I just want to see them not skip a beat. I'm surprised about this defense as a whole, how young they've been and how good they've been playing, getting turnovers at the right moments. Juan Thornhill gets the interception at the end, but before that, they only had rookies. You had 2 interceptions on the year, and both by rookie corners. And I think that that's really exciting for the future of this team, future of this defense. But Trent McDuffie is one of those guys that I hope when we do this show at the end of the year, I'm saying, man, I was really surprised by how he played this year in the positive way of that.
Nick?
I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm looking at the Chiefs defense. And this schedule sets up for Karlaftis breaking DT sack record. Like when you look at, I don't mean to gas you up, BJ, but you're playing a Titans minus Taylor Lewin, right? He's on IR. Yep. The Jaguars, you're hosting the Jaguars. Chargers, always tough, a tough game. Rams. But
Rashawn Slater's out for the year. They're left tackle.
Again, that's crazy. I mean, Rams, they're hosting them. It doesn't matter. There'd be crowd noise there in SoFi. So you only look at like the really tough O-line is the Bengals, and only really premier quarterback is the Bengals. You got Rams, Bengals, Broncos, Texans, Seattle in Arrowhead. Different story if it's in Seattle. I'm really hoping that people can finally get what they want, and we're just going to see more sacks. to be honest. Like
Nice.
I really hope that's the narrative, like based off of what this schedule shows.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Juan Thornhill. I think coming into a contract year, finishing strong, and you get into the end of the regular season and some of the, going up against Burrow. And we've seen the Bengals play better the last couple of weeks than they did the first few weeks, kind of spreading it out and just kind of going empty and throwing the ball a lot more is kind of their recipe for success. They've got some studs on the outside. Yeah. But I'm going to go with Thornhill. I think as we go into the playoffs, you're going to have to beat at some point. You're going to go up against the Bills and face Josh Allen. You want those safeties making plays. So far this year, we've been talking about, not that Thornhill or I think Justin Reed have played poorly by any means, but a lot of the big plays made by defensive backs were Josh Williams interception, Jalen Watson interception. It was the young guys. And I think, in a contract year, when the games really start to count, I would love to be talking about Juan Thornhill leading this defense, making all kinds of game-changing plays at the end of the regular season, going into the playoffs to give even more confidence to the back end of that group. We missed Willie Gay for a little bit. McDuffie's coming back, get more opportunities for a guy like Thornhill or Justin Reed to go around and fly around and make plays. Brian Cook's getting his time in the dime to get out there and make plays, but Thornhill's the guy for me just because personally I'm biased. I like the dude. I want to see him succeed. I want to see him get a contract. I want to see him get paid. And I want to see him make some of those game-changing plays. So as a fan base, we can enjoy more of what we've seen than what we've seen so far, which is really solid play that I'm sure the coaches really appreciate, leadership, all those things that that I know that he's bringing behind the scenes. But the game-changing plays and get the crowd around it, the highlights, those kinds of things, the interceptions, the big hits. I want to see some more of those from him so everybody else is on board with giving that guy some money so we can talk about it some more.
Absolutely. Like and the back end of the defense doesn't have, I'll say it, Ryan Tannehill looking ahead a little bit. Not the most menacing quarterback that they can face for that defense. But that game will be at home. That game will be at Arrowhead, which is obviously a huge advantage. You know the people out there like to tailgate. They like to get out there. And you might see some strange tall boys out at the tailgates. And you might be wondering, oh yeah, that's a Miller Lite. That might be some beer. No, it's not. It's not beer. It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps, and it's called Liquid Death. And I'm sure you're asking me, Tucker, why is it called Liquid Death? Well, it's called Liquid Death because it'll brutally murder your thirst. Not only are they trying to brutally murder your thirst, but they're also trying to brutally murder plastic pollution. I hate plastic pollution. Nick hates plastic pollution. BJ hates plastic pollution. Everyone hates plastic pollution, and they are doing their best to try to reduce that with their infinitely recyclable Tallboy cans. They donate also 10% of their profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution too, so you can feel good about buying a Liquid Death, knowing that 10% of those proceeds do go to kind of reducing the plastic pollution waste here in the country. I do love Liquid Death. I would show you a can. BJ's got a can. But I can't keep them in the house. I keep drinking them, so I can't. I can't do anything. They're so good. Their mango is good. Their lime is good. Their berry's my favorite. I think they've got the still. They have the sparkling. Anything that you want, they have it for you at Liquid Death. And here's what you got to do: find Liquid Death at your Woodman, 7-Eleven, Roundy's, Hy-Vee. You can also get it at Target as well now. Big for them. You can also go to liquiddeath.com/KCSN to find their store locator tool so you can find a retail location near you. That's liquiddeath.com/KCSN for the best tasting water you've ever had in your life.
All right, let's wrap this up. Before we go, since this will be the last time we record before the trade deadline passes on October 31st, got to be submitted so they know by November 1st on the deadline. Nick, do the Chiefs make a move?
No, I mean, I think honestly, and back to the schedule, I think we're going to get lulled into a false sense of security before playoffs too. I think this team will be overrated before we get to playoffs. I'd like to say that. I'd like to say it now, based off the schedule. The Chiefs are going to be like, this is the hardest team, whatever. Their defense is clicking, and it's like they really weren't going to be challenged November, December, to be honest. Okay. So I'll be curious to see what happens round one of playoffs for the Chiefs.
I feel like you just opened up an entirely new podcast for us.
I really did.
We'll just leave that cliffhanger.
Put a bookmark right there. Like just pin it. Just put that on your open browser tabs.
So you think they could go win like 7 or 8 in a row and people are going to think they're the dominant team and it's just because of the competition's dropped, even though they just went 5-2 against a really tough stretch. Okay.
Absolutely. But no, I'm saying what you're saying, you're going to have where your play versus your competition wasn't the playoff competition. Like how many of these teams they play are going to make the playoffs? right? So your competition level, I mean, they'll rise to the occasion. It doesn't matter. You play what's in front of you.
It's amazing that we're talking about the schedule like that back when the schedule came out and thinking that the Broncos were going to be better, thinking the Raiders were going to be better, and then they weren't. And I promise to be an insufferable Chiefs fan as soon as they win the division again, and that's going to happen. Tucker, do you think they make a move before the trade deadline?
No, I don't think that they do. Do I want them to make a move? Probably. I'm not. I know Brett Coleman was very big on mortgaging the future for Brian Burns. I'm not 100% sold on that. You'll hear more about that on today's KCSN update. Actually, I sit down with Joshua Briscoe. We talk about kind of the options the Chiefs have a little bit more. Some of the names we talk about: Jerry Hughes, maybe Yannick Ngakoue a little bit. Just now after that, the trade for Robert Quinn. What the options are now for the Chiefs after that? It's looking a little slim. I'm not gonna lie. So we'll have that a little bit more on KCSN update coming up soon on this YouTube channel.
Yeah, the one thing I'll agree with Brett on is that you're not going to find a talent like Brian Burns picking at the end of the first round. I mean, they got lucky with Karlaftis. If that's going to happen every year, you're still picking the 5th or 6th best edge rusher in every draft class. So can you get a guy that's going to come out and be dominant? You're not going to always find a Justin Houston in the 3rd round who only was a first round talent drop for some other reason. So if you feel like that's your only opportunity to get a guy that you want to build your defense around for the next half decade, then you do that, but you're giving up a lot of resources and you got to pay him a lot of money. It's the combination of those two things that you can't be wrong on that. And people will bring up Frank Clark as an example. And I'm like, Frank Clark is top 5 in NFL history and postseason sacks. So let's be a little fair about what he was brought in for regular season production when it mattered. During the Super Bowl stretch, he came through and hopefully does it again this year. But going back, it's either going to be a move, like you said, a late round pick, like a Robert Quinn, where they'd even eat some of the salary to get a pick that high. They make a move like a Terrell Suggs. You add a guy like that late. I can see maybe a small move, but I'd be really surprised to see them make a move for a guy like Brian Burns. Now, don't get me wrong. If they do it, I'll be very excited because then it opens up what you can do in the offseason where you can spend money in free agency. The cap's about to go up with the new TV deals. So there's going to be more money flying around, but 25-year-old edge rushers that are considered to be above average do not become available very often. You have to draft and develop those guys. You don't get them until the end of their 2nd contract most of the time. And most of the time they don't turn out like what we've seen from Von Miller at dominating.
Nobody.
He's a unicorn. That does not happen.
Total.
So
I do want to say too, the Chiefs do have the draft in Kansas City this year. I don't know how great it would be if the Chiefs hosted the draft and didn't have a 1st round pick on the biggest night of the draft. I don't think they're worried about that. Obviously, they'll do whatever they need to do to win a Super Bowl, and people will forget about it if they do trade for Brian Burns and he helps them to a Super Bowl. But yeah, that's just something that I think about as well when it comes to trading these picks.
Yeah, the recency bias of how well they drafted this past year, the production we're getting out of the rookie class, knowing those guys are on rookie deals and what that means for how much money you're going to be able to spend in 2 or 3 years in free agency to bring in a few guys. The allure of doing that again. And I don't know off the top of my head, Tucker, how many picks do they have? They have like 10 picks again next year, don't they?
Oh, they might. I thought it was closer to the 6 range, but the 10 might be right because they do have a lot of extra picks. They do have a lot of extra ammo to play with if they do want to trade out some later round picks because of the Tyreek Hill trade. So they do have picks like that, yeah.
And the comp picks, like I do think that they have. I think it's more than 6, but whatever it is, right. I think they hit on the draft last year. They hit on the draft again. You hit 2 drafts in a row. We have all those guys on rookie deals. Then you can go overspend, air quotes, on some guys in free agency and bring in guys to finish off the puzzle that you've already built within the draft. And that's really hard to do when you give up resources and a lot of money. Again, if you're going to do it, it's for a position like quarterback or edge rusher. But I'd just be surprised to see him do it in the middle of the season. But anyway, we appreciate everybody for hanging out, whether you're watching live on YouTube after the fact on YouTube, or whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate your support and spending part of your day with us as we all bide our time before that Sunday night football game about 10 days from now against the Tennessee Titans. And make sure, if you want to be there at the game at Arrowhead Stadium against the Tennessee Titans, make sure you subscribe to our daily Substack. We give away 2 tickets to paid subscribers for every Chiefs home game. You can find the link to that off our social media platform, but kcsn.substack.com will find you. It's $30 a year. newsletter every evening from our guy Charles Goldman, updating you on what's going on in Chiefs Kingdom that day, and then analysis every morning at 6 a.m. straight to your email inbox. About 400, between 400 and 500 newsletters now with Charles with us by a year by being a subscriber for just $30 a year. Not bad. Plus, like I said, chance to go to Arrowhead each home game on Sundays. But we appreciate all your support, and we will see you all next time previewing that game again against the Tennessee Titans. We'll see y'all.